There is a saying, folks, that there is nothing new under the sun. This is a biblical saying, unlike all these worldly philosophers. It is wholly true because it comes from the mouth of God. Everything works in cycles in this world. Plants are born, they give off seeds or are pollinated by bees, and new plants are born. It is the cycle of life, and unfortunately for Christian people, who I believe are the true Israelites, we work in cycles and often not for our benefit. Often the cycle goes from being poor and having nothing because we have disobeyed God to being very pious and observant of God's laws, yet becoming more prosperous, which leads inevitably to decadence. This is what has happened to our European societies. We observed God, we worshipped God, we built brilliant churches to God all over the country. The Normans did, and men like Christopher Wren. And yet, now we find ourselves in a situation, although mostly comfortable for the time being, it is looking more and more tenuous for us white Christian folk. The enemy is not just at the gates, he is already inside and not far off being in control of everything. Now, there is no doubt about it that if the current trends continue with the propaganda of miscegenation and the huge numbers of people, foreign peoples coming into our land, that the white DNA will eventually die out. It could be as soon as 50 years from now, it could be 100, but it will eventually die out. That is inevitable, unless something is put in place to protect our DNA, which is a more than reasonable request. The problem that we have now is that the numbers of foreigners are so ingrained and integrated into our society that it's difficult to say anything against them. For instance, if you go to a school, unless you go to a very posh, expensive school, your child will be surrounded by people of all colours and all backgrounds. Now, they are brought up around these people, and I know myself from being in such a school that not all these people are the devil incarnate. I know they are different to us. I remember they smelt different and they acted different, but generally some were okay, some were arseholes, same as whites. This is not the point that a nationalist should be making, that their character, although yes, there are examples of the bad character from these people, such as the Muslims, who can be very insular, and they've been known, some of them, to rape children and to blow themselves up and kill lots and lots of people because they have no respect for us or our culture. But that is not just the problem. People will say, well, what about Mr. Mohammed down at number 42? He's a good bloke. And guess what? He is a good bloke. He's nice, he's kind, he'll help you out, he'll give you his shirt off his back. Now, this is the problem. People point at the good people who are not from our culture as being alright. And so that should make the numbers of them coming in okay too. And if white DNA dies out, well, so what? They'll be good people. Now, this is a fallacy. We as whites are different. We are children of Jehovah Almighty and his son Jesus Christ, also a very important figure, no doubt. Now, the thing that makes us different is our creative spark and our empathy, of which, if you generally look at other races, they do not even come close to us. But what I was saying was, yes, there are dickheads from both races, from all races, and there are people who apparently are very nice. Now, that's all well and good, but that is the problem with a lot of nationalism today. Our slant on it is, well, these guys have done this, this, and this, we need to get rid of them. But it's flawed thinking, because the left winger is always going to point to the nice guy, the exception to the rule, or even like a Muslim who will come out vehemently against what these other Muslims are doing. Now, that is all well and good, but the problem is that the way it has been set by our enemies, Zog, as I will refer to them, they have set up a very cunning plan to get rid of our DNA. Now, that is the thing we should be focusing on, that we are trying to preserve our unique DNA, the unique profile of being white. And I don't just mean partly white, I mean fully white, or at least 95%. These people, of Europeans, have built great things that no other race can come close to. We have every right to have our own lands and to live among our own people. It is not that we hate all these people of different races and we just want to beat up on them. That is bollocks. They are more aggressive than us on the whole. We are too kind, and that is part of the problem. The thing is, folks, that most people naturally have that tribalism within them. God put it there as a good instinct, not a bad instinct, to protect your own, and so that you reproduce your own kind. This is clear in the animal world as it is in the human world. Most people associate with their own kind, people who are like them, who have their own customs and culture. Birds of a feather flock together. This could also be interpreted as race mixing, meaning committing adultery, in that you are adulterating your blood. Your unique DNA profile that was previously white will now be mixed. Kind after kind is what the Bible teaches. For example, if you put a grizzly bear being put in an enclosure with a black bear, that would be unnatural. It goes without saying that you would put a grizzly with another grizzly, especially if they are endangered, because it is common sense to preserve a unique animal species. Hence, why is it not common sense to preserve the different types of human species? Liberals and anti-whites are obviously not very honest people. They lie and are very slippery. A good example of their hypocrisy is that normal establishment liberal scientists will recognize that different species of bird or lizard or any other animal that lives within England, for example, if an invasive species comes in, that has to be culled in order for the native to survive. Now, here is where we come unstuck. The media and the overlords who are doing all this quite on purpose to get rid of white people promote tribalism among minorities. Minorities are tribal anyway, because if they weren't, they would get nowhere. They do not have, in general terms, the same intelligence, creativity, or kindness that we do, that formed modern white civilization. So they need to be fiercely tribal just to survive. The problem is that these social engineers have become so powerful that they dictate what is good and bad. They dictate the norms and values of our current society. So they will use hypocrisy, but people adhere to these laws because they are frowned on if they don't. This is another problem with being white and proud or white and nationalist minded. If you go to school, you will have to mix with these people who are different to you, and even if you don't, they will put you in groups with them to encourage more mixing. Therefore, most young people who are normal socially, pretty good social skills, will by the time they're at 15 have at least one non-white friend and or someone who is mixed. Now it's very difficult at this point for that white person to say, I